Hi everyone. Today I want to do a video on why you have to be an ally to yourself before you can be an effective ally to other people. This is a big topic, and it's something that people have a lot of resistance to. The experience of being an effective ally for many involves recognizing that there's a problem out there in the world that needs to be solved, running into it, and learning on the fly, which I don't suggest you don't do, but a lot of the pain, frustration, ineffectiveness that comes from being an ally happens at exactly that moment where people realize how unprepared they were when they decided to show up. They encounter the world in all these different ways, and a lot of their shadow, unconscious bias, and just things that they didn't know become front and center. That tends to scare them, and being scared, they may shirk away from other opportunities to be effective allies. And more importantly, they won't know what it feels like to receive effective allyship. And then not knowing what it feels like to receive effective allyship, they're not going to have an opportunity to give it to other people. A concrete example of this is I do a lot of partner dancing, and I identify primarily as a lead. I can dance both positions. I can lead and also I can follow. In fact, there was a very important moment in my dance journey when I realized that one, I didn't know how to follow, and just opportunity came up to learn. And as I was learning how to follow, I realized the dance is understandably completely different from the perspective of a follow. Whereas as a leader, I was in the metaphor of dancing, doing a lot of the talking, deciding, moving things around, kind of controlling the dance, or so I thought. It turns out that the follow had a crazy amount to offer the dance that was utterly invisible to me until I took that position. The follow actually sets the tone of the dance. The thing that was happening invisibly for me as a lead is that I was constantly in conversation with how does the follow carry themselves? Where is their weight being held? What moves do they have? A lot of this stuff was invisible to me because as a leader, I was just constantly in deciding mode, reacting mode. And while the follow is also constantly in reacting mode, in fact, they respond to everything that the lead does, they get to offer essentially effective resistance to what the lead wants to do as a form of communication. They also add tone to the dance. They are an essential part of like the groundedness. In fact, it was everything but a passive experience. Suddenly, also, when I was learning how to follow, I realized that there was a lot of moves that I was doing as a lead that just didn't feel good. They looked good. They felt good from the position of me being a lead. But when I finally sat into the follow position, I was like, oh, that's what this feels like. Okay, I can make this minor adjustment as a lead. And now I have the ability to execute a move that not only looks good, that feels good to me, but that is creating a positive feedback loop between me and my follow. And turns out when you're creating a dance that feels good for the follow, it also tends to look good. There tends to be a lot of positive energy going on. And so it's almost a quantum leap of in my quality of dancing when I was able to take on the role of the follow. But what I also found is that I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy being in the more receptive mode, the way that my brain got to use. I was in more of a listening, more of a responsive skill set. I was having to learn, not anticipate, but learning exactly how to interpret each of the movements of the leads that we're going for. I found the things that I couldn't hear and couldn't listen to, and so became more sensitive and attuned. And what I found was that when I went back into the lead position, that ear training, that deep listening with my body didn't go away. And so suddenly there were things that I could hear as a lead that previously I couldn't hear at all before I'd learned how to follow. So how does this come back into allyship? Well, in allyship, unfortunately, we don't necessarily always have a partner that's external to us to do that push and pull. In the Mastering the Game of Allyship system, I actually teach you to hold two perspectives. I teach you to hold the sort of leading mode of allyship, the one who is helping and helping to create change in someone's life, but making sure that that skill set that you have as a helper never outpaces your ability to listen effectively and know what type of help is going to be most effective. And very specifically, we focus on that positive feedback loop of, okay, if I know this type of help feels good to me, all I have to do is find people who are like me, and I'll be able to apply that help to them. If I know that I struggle to hear XYZ things, now I know I can seek out allyship opportunities that will help me get better at that skill set so that I can hear those nuances a little bit more. And what that does for us is it allows us to center ourselves, find out what works for us, and show up in the world in a way that's a little bit more confident. There's three ways to sort of be an ally. There's the, I'm going to learn everything in the world forever and anticipate everyone's needs. I highly recommend you don't do that, but this is kind of the standard state of allyship right now. And then there's the jumping in blindly mode. Jumping in blindly works if you have a lot of bravery, if you're willing to take a lot of hits, if you're willing to be wrong a lot of the time, if you're willing to hold space for a lot of people's discomfort. This strategy is actually pretty good. If everyone just chose to jump in and figure things out, we'd be in a better spot. But there's an in-between path that is really where effectiveness and mastery comes from, which is the ability to understand yourself enough. You get to be your own research and development wing for the allyship that you want to offer the world. Find what feels good for you. Learn to take perspective inside of yourself, learning how to be in the leading and following of allyship in yourself. And then when you jump into the fray, you'll be more attuned to find the opportunities that will definitely work for you. And so that you know you'll be effective from the jump. Now, as an ally, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to show up as an ally. Being an effective ally just means that you increase the percentage of time that you're showing up effectively. People are going to need help that aren't like you all the time, but you can give yourself more compassion knowing that you are consciously spending energy every day, week, month, showing up for people who you pre-know you're going to be effective to. And you know this because they're like you. Takes the pressure off, takes the stakes off for when you have to show up in situations that aren't like you. And because you can then actually healthily center your perspective and usually talk about it in a way that won't trigger other people, you can actually create what I call intersubjective brainstorming. You can actually with someone else be like, hey, I know how to help people like me. Here's what I have available. Can I offer you any of these skills, any of this help? You get to then empower someone who you're allying with to be like, no, actually, I don't want any of those. Or actually, I can take this, but can you sort of shift it there? Suddenly you're in collaboration as opposed to ineffective allyship, which is taking someone as an object and then trying to change them. It's like an unskillful leader where really you're trying to control the dance instead of holding space for a good dance to emerge. So I'm going to do another video as to break down specifically what being an ally to yourself looks like, but I wanted to take this video to really just break down like why that's important, why we sort of focus on that in the Master the Game of system, because it is different than a lot of people anticipate.